In the last section, we started putting together our server implementation by defining the package.json file and a couple of keys that are going to be used to connect to our running Redis instance and the running Postgres instance as well. I'll now continue by creating a new file inside of the server directory. I'm going to call this index.js. And this single file is going to house all the logic that we need to connect to Redis, connect to Postgres, and eventually kind of broker information between the two of them and the running React application. So we're going to do a lot of typing in here. Again, please make sure that you are paying close attention to all this spelling and all that kind of good stuff, because like I've said previously, it's going to be a little bit of a pain to troubleshoot this stuff later on. All right, so let's get through this. At the very top of this file, we're going to first require in all the keys that we just defined inside the keys.js file. And then we're going to define a couple of different sections inside of here, because we're going to have several different things that are going on inside this file. The first section that we're going to make is going to be dedicated to Express app setup. So this is where we're going to define and set up the Express side of the application. So I'm going to first require in the Express library. I'm going to also require in something called body parser. And we're also going to require in cores. I'll then make a new Express application. And I'll tell the app to use cores and app.use bodyparser.json as well. Now notice that on both these lines right here, I say cores, and I've got a set of double parentheses and bodyparser.json, and then double parentheses there as well. Very quickly, let's talk about what's going on right here. We first require in the Express library. We require in the body parser library and the cores library as well. We then create a new Express application. So this app right here is essentially the object that's going to receive and respond to any HTTP requests that are coming or going back to the React server, or the React application. We then wire up something called cores. Cores is short for cross-origin resource sharing. And it's essentially going to allow us to make requests from one domain that the React application is going to be running on to a completely different domain, or different port in this case, that the Express API is hosted on. The body parser library right here is going to parse incoming requests from the React application and turn the body of the post request into a JSON value that our Express API can then very easily work with. Now, very quickly, I think that we might have missed the dependency body parser inside of our package.json file. You know, I'm looking at this and I think that we did miss that. Let's add on that dependency here very quickly. So inside of the package.json file, I'm going to add on body-parser. And I'll just specify the version as star like so, and we'll just get the latest version of it. Okay, so quick change inside the package.json file. Now back over inside of index.js, after doing the Express app setup, we'll then do some setup to create and connect to our running Postgres server. So this will be a new section that we'll call Postgres Client Setup. So this is going to be all the logic required to get the Express application to communicate with the running Postgres server. Remember, Postgres is a SQL type database, very similar to, say, MySQL. So right here, we're going to require in the pool module from the PG library. Notice that I've got the curly braces around pool right here. And then we're going to create a new PG client or Postgres client out of this pool object. So I'll say new pool, and to this thing, we're going to pass in some of the different keys that we had defined inside of the keys.js file. And remember, we already required in that keys file at the very top. So we're going to pass in user as keys.pg user, pass in host as keys.pg host, database as keys.pg database, password as keys.pg password, and port as keys.pg port. Now again, can't say it enough, please double check all the keys on the left-hand side and double check your spelling on PG user, host, database, password, and port. Then after all that, we're going to add on a little error listener down here. We're going to say pg client.on error Anytime that an error with the connection occurs, we'll console log out a little message that says lost PG connection, like so. Okay, so that's it for doing the initial setup of the Postgres client. But unfortunately, we have to do one other quick piece here. Anytime that we connect to a SQL type database, we have to initially create, at least one time, a table that's going to store all of the values. So in our particular case, we're going to create a table that's going to store all of the values that have ever been, or all the indices to be precise, that have been submitted to our fib calculator. Remember, that's the only job of Postgres here. Postgres is just going to store the indices of any submitted value. It's not going to actually store the calculated values or anything like that. It's just saying, hey, this index of 10, this index of 5, they've both been submitted. So we're going to create a table inside the database to house that information. Now the syntax that we're going to use for that right here is going to be just a little bit complicated. We're going to say pg client.query, and then inside of a string we'll say create table if not exists. So this is going to create a table if it has not already been created. And we'll say values, and then in a set of parentheses we'll say number int, like so. So the name of the table is going to be values, and it's going to store a single column of information that we'll refer to as number. And so number right here is essentially going to be the index of the submitted value from the React application. Now to this thing, I'm going to leave off the semicolon on the very end, and I'm going to add on a catch statement. So if anything goes wrong with creating that table, we'll console log an error, so that we know, hey, we were not able to successfully make the table. All right, so that's it for the Postgres setup. We've got all the connection logic right here, and we've got a single line of code right here that's going to make sure that we've got a table inside that database that can hold the indices of all the submitted values that have been entered into the application. Let's do another quick break right now. When we come back to the next section, we're going to add on another little block of configuration down here that's going to make sure that we can connect to our Redis instance from the Express API. So another quick break, and I'll see you in just a minute.